The human experience, with our flaws, our passions, our triggers, our inspirations, and our imprints. If we could see behind everyone's story, then perhaps what we would have is deep compassion. In this podcast, I get the chance to explore these stories from some truly fascinating people in some honest and heartwarming conversations. And best of all, I get to share these discussions with you. I'm Lael Stone, and this is Humans Being. Welcome to Humans Being. I'm Lael Stone. My humanness for this week has been all about old patterns resurfacing. So just when you think that you've done the work or you think that you have dealt with something big, then something happens in your world and it just kind of like slaps you in the face again. And just recently I've had something like that happen, something that I thought that I'd really worked through, I'd put down, I've healed that piece, and then another little element popped up. And my first thought when it happened was like, haven't we done this? Like, I'm so bored of this story or this pattern. Yet I realized there was still a little bit more to lean into or a little bit more to touch into. And I think the older I get, the more I'm realizing is that we're never actually done. And maybe these big things that have the layers, maybe they do continue to turn up, and it, instead of bothering us for a day, maybe it's an hour, or maybe it's 10 minutes, or maybe it's a minute, or maybe you just notice it and then you let it go in that moment. But it really did remind me about how tender we are as humans and how often these beautiful things pop up in our lives to keep us connected to who we really are, to help us let go of the things that no longer serve us, and to really touch into, I think, our humanity, that no one's really got it together, right? We're all kind of moving through this big planet trying to find our way in whatever way we can. So it really did, I think, this week remind me to be deeply compassionate to myself, but also to the journey of others, where we're all just trying to find our way through. So that is my humanness for this week. If you have something that keeps repeating or a pattern that keeps turning up, I invite you to turn towards it gently and maybe have a conversation with it, and not be as mean as I did to be like, oh, goddamn, thought we'd done that. Tenderness is always a good way to roll. All right, my guest today, which I have to say I am just so incredibly honoured, because this woman's voice, I feel, has been with me for close to 20 plus years. It is such a incredible honour to welcome Missy Higgins today. Hello.
Hello.
I'm so happy to have you here. For those of you who don't know who Missy Higgins is a Melbourne-born singer-songwriter whose career spans more than 2 decades. She came to national attention in 2001 when her debut entry in Triple J's Unearth competition, a song she'd written for a school assignment, went on to win and to get added to the station's playlist. Her debut album, The Sound of White, became one of the best-selling Australian albums of its era, certified 9 times platinum, and launched a run of ARIA wins that included Album of the Year, Best Female Artist, and Best Pop Release. And by 2024, she had accumulated 9 ARIA awards and was inducted into the ARIA Hall of Fame. Her most recent album, The Second Act, debuted at number 1 on the ARIA chart and won Best Adult Contemporary Album at the 2025 ARIAs. It was described upon release as the most raw and personal work of her career, written in the aftermath of her divorce, largely recorded alone at night in her home studio once the children were asleep. She's now in a new relationship, is a mother to 2 neurodiverse children while navigating her own recent ADHD diagnosis and actively reshaping her sense of self post-divorce. And in Missy's own description, I love this. She says, I'm an Australian singer-songwriter who writes lyrically driven, ultra-personal songs and sings in my own accent. I spend most of my time rushing late from one thing to another, having a small social battery, but I'm a good friend and I love a dirty joke. Welcome, Missy. Before I start, I have to just tell you this story. I mentioned just before I was talking about my son. So he's now 26. So when he was like 5 or 6, your album Sound of White was one we used to listen to all the time. And what he used to say, because, you know, your kids always just listen to the music you listen to and then they like it. So he often would get in the car and he would always say, can you put on Mrs. Higgins? So he used to call you Mrs. Higgins. And he used to sing it in that beautiful little 5-year-old voice, your song. Like, and I just often when I hear that album, I think of him singing it.
Yeah.
And I remember one day we used to live around Elstonwick and East St Kilda. And one day we were actually at the Hole in the Wall Cafe. Do you know that one in East St Kilda? And you were actually in there. I wasn't there. This was my husband. You were actually in there. And my son was with my husband. They had just come back from school or kinder and they're having like a little coffee and that kind of stuff. And you were there. And my husband was like, oh my God, Missy Higgins is over there. You should go and say hi to Kai. And Kai's like, I can't meet Mrs. Higgins. He was just in this gorgeous little state of, I can't do it. And we still talk about that story today because it was just, I think your music, and I think this is the beauty of music. It takes us back to times in our lives. It is so powerful. Do people share that with you often about how impactful it is because of what that means to them in their world?
Yeah, well, I recently did the 20th anniversary of my first album as a tour, and well, it was a couple of years ago now, but yeah, that sense of nostalgia was just like palpable in the audience because I did the entirety of my first album from start to finish. And yeah, you could just see all these people in the audience going through what it was taking them back to in their lives. And I know that from my own experience too, like certain songs, it's like, oh my God, I'm in year 12 in my dormitory and I'm like reading the liner notes of the CD and I'm in this, you know, turmoil and this relationship and it's just like it's such a palpable feeling.
Yeah.
It's like smells. It smells the same thing.
It takes you back there. My beautiful middle child, she's 22 and her love of music is just, and it's so broad, everything that she loves. And I think one of the things when we were raising kids, I remember saying to my husband, you know, what are the values we want our kids to have? And I'll never forget, Mike looked at me and he goes, our kids need to have good rhythm. And I'm like, we've got to shoot more than just like being able to clap. And he goes, no, they've got to appreciate music. They've got to, that's really, really, really wanted. And that's been so important for him that they all have, like they absolutely love it. And one of the things that I love about my middle daughter, Indy, is she's the type of person that no matter situation, wherever you are, she could think of the perfect song to come in for that. It's like she could collate a soundtrack to people's lives. And I often think there's got to be a job somewhere for you here. No matter where we're having dinner or we're going somewhere, she's like, I've got the perfect song. And she'll just pull out this song that is just so poignant.
And that's so
the
cute.
beauty of music, isn't it? That it accompanies life and the stories that we're living.
You could do soundtracking for film.
Yes, that's what I said to her. I said to her that there's a job there for you. She's like, oh, I could do that.
Yeah.
Before we dive into some questions, what I was talking about at the beginning with my humanness of just, you know, things where we think we've healed or we've put it to bed or we've like moved on from, does that turn up in your life too? Like, do you notice where those things that you're like, I'm sure I've worked on that, and then something just kind of triggers you again?
Yeah, constantly. I mean, I think going through a divorce or separation a few years ago brought up so much in me that I thought I'd sorted out. Like, I didn't realize that I had such a narrative about how my life was going to be. And I also didn't realize that I'd bought into this very common cultural narrative of like, your life is now successful because you are married with kids. And then because when that fell apart, I was like, oh, now I feel like a failure in the eyes of society. Whereas that was nothing that I was conscious about beforehand. And in fact, if someone had said that to me, I'd be like, no, I don't buy into that crap. But then suddenly I felt like I was on the outside and I'd failed to do this thing that everyone else seemed to be able to do, which is not true because 50%. I was like, But for me, I was like, surely I'll be able to make it work. Anyway, it was such a humbling experience. And I think in the years since then, there's been so much that's come up that I've been like, wow, I can't believe that, I'm still dealing with that. Like sense of identity and self-worth and story, like, and control. Like I thought that I had way more control over my narrative and the way that my life would go, which is an ego thing, I guess, because ultimately you just have to release a lot of that to the laws of the universe. yeah, stuff comes up all the time. I think half of it is like, half of what I've learned over the last few years is that it is, like you said, it's an ongoing process. Like life is just one big kind of lesson as you go. And yeah, maybe you'll kind of figure something out, and then in a few years it'll kind of come back again, and you'll try and remember the lessons that you learned, and you'll put them into place, and you'll be like, okay, I have made progress, but it's still there.
Yeah.
You know, it's still a work in progress, the whole thing, all the time.
And I often find too, sometimes if we can actually look back and look at how far we've come, it helps us to go, I actually am growing and I am moving. But it's in those places, isn't it, where when you're in the thick of it and it feels really hard and it's painful, we're just in that this sucks and this is not okay. But, you know, over the other side of that, often I think sometimes those big movements help us to come home to ourselves or help us to come more connected to who we are.
Yeah, and that it helps you like develop a bit of self-compassion, I think, because if you can settle into the fact that this will keep coming up and you can't just conquer things as you go and then they'll never resurface. It's like, okay, yeah, half of the battle is just forgiving myself and being compassionate with myself about the fact that, oh yeah, this is coming up again. Like I've had depression on and off throughout my whole adult life, and one thing that I've found makes it so much better to handle is if I remind myself every time it happens that it's a passing thing.
Yeah.
Like it's actually not going to last forever. I know my brain tells me every time that it's going to last forever. Yeah. But now I've developed this kind of talk back with myself to go, your brain's going to tell you that it's always been like this and it will always be like this, but you just have to remember that it never, ever is.
Yeah.
Same with writer's block. It's the same thing. Like it's just a passing thing. Yeah. If you don't buy into it too much, then it will probably move through even quicker.
Yeah. Which is just such beautiful wisdom, isn't it? Because I keep often thinking about we go like this. I mean, as women, we go like this all the time, right? You'd think we'd be better at it because we've been, you know, our whole life since I think hormones, we start bleeding, all that kind of stuff. We're like this every month. And yet I often still get surprised. I'm like, why am I feeling like this? Or why is that there? And you're like, because you're this beautiful cyclic being and you have to move through these seasons. And I think it is so helpful, isn't it, to go, this too will pass. We just have to be with it. And I think I've learned also too, the more I turn away from it, the more I'm like, the louder it gets. And so often now I just turn towards it and go, come on, come in, sit down, let's chat, like, you know, be with it. It actually, it eases it a little bit.
Yeah, because if you're irritable at everybody else in your household and you're irritable at yourself for being irritable, that's just so much worse. It's like, okay, it's all right. This is just happening because it's this time of the month. And maybe I just need like 5 minutes break and a cup of tea just to kind of be a little bit soft on myself in this moment, and then, you know, that'll make it a little bit easier.
Yeah. It's so, mate, being human's really hard, isn't it, sometimes? I always think it's pretty amazing that we can do some incredible things in the world when you think about the challenges that we navigate. And I also think too, those deeper core imprints or stories that we have that are part of our big narrative, like whether I'm not smart enough or whether, you know, love is scary or whether it's something about it's not safe to be seen in the world. Like I think we all have those really strong threads that run through our stories, and they're the ones that often keep popping up. Like, and I often find that in myself of when I'm going to do something new, like a book that I wrote last year, this thread that I've had most of my life came back so loud, which was just, you're not smart enough, or you can't do that, or not you can't do it. I knew I could do it, but just, you know, you're not really a writer in that way. And it was I remember just keep going, I can't believe you're still here as a thought. Like I've done lots of things to kind of move past that, but it was just still there. And I thought, all right, maybe there's still layers of healing I have to do within this, or maybe there's something I still need to learn from it. But I'm still shocked. So, I mean, I know this stuff is part of being human, but I'm sometimes still shocked and go, Jesus, like, you know, it doesn't feel fair sometimes.
I think that's because everyone's kind of silently battling with all those thoughts inside their head, but we don't realize it. We just look at each other and think everyone else has got it sorted out. Like everyone else's brains are just really calm and confident, and I don't know, maybe if everyone was just a bit more honest about their own neuroses.
Yes.
I feel like that about parenting sometimes. Like sometimes I find it so hard, and from the outside, everybody else seems like they've got it together and they've got these harmonious households. But then I think, well, I actually have never seen inside another house at like 6 p.m. So God knows what happens, but we don't, because of the way that all of our lives are set up, and we live in our own little silos of parenting. It's like we just don't get to see what other people are doing and how much other people are struggling.
Yeah.
And then everybody has this kind of curated, picture of their lives on social media, which makes us feel even worse.
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes I crave living in a community where we could all just like do it together, and it could just all be this big, beautiful mess.
You could see everyone else is messy. You're so right. And one of the things when parents reach out to me about something that's big that's going on, I always say the same thing, is what you're describing is really normal. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I have heard this so many times before around what your child's doing or how you're reacting. It's normal. And I think that's where it's really powerful. Sometimes I've run groups where mothers just get to come and talk and just be heard. And a lot of the people just listen. And in the listening, they're like, oh my God, I am the same. And there's something about it that actually helps us go, yeah, it's not just me. Because exactly as you say, we think we're the only ones that aren't doing it well. But actually most universally, particularly with parenting, we're all bumping up against the same stuff.
Yeah.
And it's bloody hard. It's really hard. I often say parenting is the hardest job you will ever do, without doubt.
It's very hard.
Yeah. Speaking of other jobs, I've always been really curious about this, about someone who's been such a, incredibly successful artist, and people love your music and they want to hear the same songs again. Do you ever think, oh God, I've got to play this song again? Like, is there still a part of you that gets really bored, with playing, songs that you've played for a long time? Or is there a way that you kind of keep it alive each time you play?
I don't get bored with playing songs live, but I get bored with rehearsing. Like if I'm doing rehearsal with my band, I'll be like, I just don't want to play that song. Like some of the songs from my first album that I've just played 1 billion times, I've been like, guys, we know that. We don't need to rehearse it.
Yeah.
But when it's live, I think it just becomes so much about the audience and the audience's reaction. Like those songs that I'm probably bored of playing by myself or with my band in private, they just take on a whole new life when I'm playing them live, because they're the favorite ones, And I just look at the audience and I see them smiling and I see them crying and hugging each other and singing along, and it's just the best thing ever. So I think there was probably a period in my 20s when I was a bit, like I'd pull back from those songs a bit, because I'd feel like, I shouldn't have to play these every time, and I'm better than this now. And my ego was like, I've moved on from this. But now I've just come, for a long time now, I've just come full circle, and now I'm just so grateful to have those songs that people have carried with them for so many decades and still love. And I can see how amazing that is, that, the songs have that longevity. But yeah, for a while I definitely rebelled from them.
Are you able to take in what a gift your talent and your art has been to others? Like, does that sometimes feel overwhelming when you're like, whoa, people are really into this? Or, does it sit in a place for you where you're like, wow, I'm just really lucky to do something that lands with people? How does it integrate?
Yeah, I think a similar thing. Like, I think I now, at this point in my career, I can really feel that gratitude and really feel like it's an amazing privilege to be able to touch people in that way. And I feel lucky in a way, because I don't know how it happens. I just seem to be able to write songs that people can relate to. I think it's taken me a while to get there, because as I said, like there was a good period in my 20s when I was rebelling from those, that first album and how kind of crazy that had gone, and I felt this pressure then to stay as that person.
Yeah.
So I think there was this real friction for a while there where I felt like I had to prove that I was more than that first album. And so I was kind of, that showed up as a bit of defensiveness, I think. But over the years, I think I did just kind of keep writing albums, and I kept expressing myself and where I was at that time. And, some of the songs hit well, some of them didn't. But I think that ultimately I just proved to myself that I was more than just my first or second album. Like I did have longevity. I think that's every musician and songwriter's biggest fear, is that you will just run out of inspiration and you'll run out of songs. Like I went through a few years in my 20s where I was I had such bad writer's block that I was like, I'm never going to be able to write a song again. And then who the hell am I? And then how am I going to get any respect? How am I going to respect myself? Like, I just didn't think I had any self-worth if it wasn't for my, my success and people liking my music. But yeah, it's come to mean a lot more to me than that now. And I'm just, I'm super, super grateful for the people that keep turning up to my shows and keep wanting to hear my music. And it wouldn't really matter to me the size of my fan base at this point. It would just, the fact that I connect with anybody is a really beautiful feeling to me now. Like, it just makes me feel like the stories that I'm telling, they're not living in their own little bubble. Like, they mean something to people and they connect with people, which ultimately makes me feel not so alone in my journey,
Yeah. Do you think, or what helped you when you're in that period where you're like, that writer's block and just feeling really, I guess, all those stories coming up for you? What helped you move through that? What was it that shifted it?
I think I did a lot of self-exploration, and I tried some new things out. Like I went and studied at university, and I did a lot of traveling and having new experiences and meeting people. And I think I just had a big break from music and just went in another direction. And after a couple of years of that, I just started really missing it. And then I got offered a tour overseas with my favourite artist, Sarah McLachlan. And I couldn't say no because she was just my absolute idol at the time. And I did that, and I just realised as soon as I got up on stage, I was like, oh, this is what I'm meant to do. Like, this is my lifeblood. Like, this is the thing that makes me feel so alive. And as soon as I started playing again, I was like, oh, I think I'd forgotten how much I loved this because of all the pressure I was putting on myself.
I can imagine that huge pressure of and I can imagine there's a part of you, or maybe not, but with artists sometimes we can just be in that, this is my magic, this is what I'm creating. But then there's also a part of, is that going to land with the audience? Are they going to like it? Like, I know with some people who are creatives, some are just like, this is what I see, and if people like it or not, doesn't matter. I'm just doing it for me. And then there's also another commercial aspect that sometimes turn up, which is that whole, how's the audience going to land with this? What do they think? Does that factor in for you? Or are you just like, here's my stories, here they are?
I think I really want them to land for people. Yeah, I think I'd be lying if I said I just don't give a shit if people like my songs or not. Like, if people walked out of the venue when I started playing my new songs, I wouldn't care. Like, of course I'd care, because so much of it for me is connecting. I mean, the first half of it, I guess, is me expressing myself. That's a really important part of it, because it has this therapeutic benefit for me where I really, really feel like it helps me figure out, tricky emotions, and helps me figure out other humans and their thought processes, and just helps me untangle the world. And so I can be real. That's a beautiful feeling when I finish a song and I feel like, oh, this really encapsulated this experience. And I feel like that really smoothed it out for me and made it into this kind of small, tangible thing that I can now hold and understand. And then the second half of it is now taking that to an audience and seeing if anyone else can relate, And it would be pretty heartbreaking if I'd done this such an intensely personal thing and then taken it to hundreds of people and they'd be like, what? This sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens. I've played lots of songs that didn't land with people, but it's such an amazing feeling when I just know that it's connecting. And it is it's a visceral feeling. Like there's an energy in the air where it's like, oh, everyone's like holding their breath because they feel like I'm saying something that they weren't able to articulate.
Yeah.
And that's such a great feeling.
I imagine it takes a bit of courage for you to so vulnerably share that this is what's happening in my world. Do you ever second guess that, or do you just go, right, I'm just going to put it all out there and see? Or do you hold back a little bit?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure there are places that I hold back a little bit. Like there's always little thought processes as I'm writing the song of like, is that too much to say, or is that too much to give away? But I think ultimately I do try to be as honest as I can. Like it's not very often that I'll censor myself.
Mm-hmm.
I think because over the years I've just learned that is it's just the most kind of rewarding way to do it, because the more honest you are and the less you hold back, the more power the song has and the braver it is. And the braver you are with expressing your deepest kind of fears and insecurities, the more people will relate to it and the more they can kind of grab hold of it and go, yeah, this thing I wasn't brave enough to say, or, this is the thing that I've never heard articulated in this way before because no one's gone there before, So I just want to be that voice for people where they go, oh, that song explains the thing in my life that I've always struggled to explain, or that song is really articulating what I'm struggling with in this relationship or in this stage of my life.
Yeah. And you do it so magnificently. Like your writing is poetry. It's so beautiful. And it's such a gift. There's such a gift. Not everybody can do something like that, to express in words and then with music just the human condition, and I love how much that just connects us all. That's the power of music and the power of storytelling in so many ways. I would love to understand or just hear from you, because you've got two little kiddos. How old are they now?
Luna is 7 and Sammy is 11.
11. Wow.
Yeah.
11. So moving into the tween years. Beautiful. Fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
How has being a mum changed you? Or what has it taught you?
Humility, number one. Well, I think one of the reasons I wanted to have kids is because I wanted to stop kind of thinking about myself, and I wanted to stop like worrying about myself. I think I've always been a little bit kind of too internal and navel-gazy and I was feeling like I just want something some way to kind of, I want to take care of another thing. Like I want to have a little human being that I can love and take care of and look after, and something to like worry about and concentrate on that's not myself. And it just felt like, to me, yeah, I was ready for that new meaning in my life, like this greater meaning. I was like, I want my life to be more than just looking after me. And of course it was like, it just felt like a beautiful thing to do with my partner, to do this together. And it's just been the biggest learning experience, I think, because I think I heard Steve Biddulph say once that you're never going to get the kid that you expected or that you wanted or something, and your kid is going to never get the parent that they expected or wanted. And that, to me, is the biggest learning experience, because your kid is just going to come out as their own person. And you know, if they came out exactly like you expected, there'd be nothing to learn and there'd be no reason to grow. But my kids are just so interesting and awesome and fascinating to me. And I'm constantly trying to learn about them and learn what makes them tick. They're both so different. You know, I almost thought I had my son figured out, and then my daughter arrived. I'm like, oh my God, this is a whole new ball game. And yeah, I've really had to put my ego aside, you know, well, like on a daily basis, because my needs come last. And that's like quite hard for me. For most people, maybe, like just in the little things, like you're hungry and you're tired and you're grumpy, but your kid needs you, and it's like I can't even get to the kettle to make myself a coffee because my kid needs me over there, and then they need me to stay with them for like half an hour, and all I want is just food and just a little bit of quiet. And so on a daily basis, it's like, yeah, I have to put that aside and care for this little human being, because I chose to have children and I care about this thing more. I care about them more than I care about myself. And it's my job to kind of learn about them and to nourish them and to bring them up in the world with a sense of kind of confidence and security. Yeah, it's just every day. It just like I really don't feel like I've ever got a handle on it. And I probably never will. But that's what makes it such an amazing thing. Like I can't imagine what I'd do with my days at the moment. If I'd like, they are so consuming, and they're such a massive part of my life now that yeah, I just can't imagine what I'd do without them.
I love that you're like, hey, maybe I don't want to think about myself anymore. I have kids. It's like the ultimate, like, oh, okay, let's just strip away everything that's about the self, because that's so parenting, isn't it? It's deep servitude. Like I remember thinking that when my kids are little, I'm like, mate, I'm like the servant to these little people. And I remember thinking, how do I do this with awareness? Because I was doing it with a lot of resentment in the beginning when I had little kids, because I just, you know, well, you know, you feel like you're making it up, and I had no self-care, and it was challenging. I was, you know, there was many years that was the challenge of parenting. And I remember having this thought of, yes, they are my teachers, and yes, you know, they are here to really show me what I'm made of. But also, how do I do this with a level of consciousness in being the servant? And I remember just thinking, is this my life for the next 20 years that I'm just making snack plates? Like I remember just thinking, this is a lot. And then realizing, I guess, the deep spiritual practice that comes with parenting, you know, which is that part of we surrender parts of ourselves to give here, but then we also need to find who we are amongst that. Like there's a lot that goes on within it. I mean, parenting to me is, I often say, you know, if you want to become conscious or awake, you know, just try and parent consciously. Like you could go and meditate on a mountain for 10 years, or you could just try and raise your kids, right, without losing it. Like that's the art.
Like I said, like yesterday, Luna we just got the treadmill out of the garage and put it in the house, and she just won't stop playing on it. And it says in big letters, do not let children use the treadmill. But she won't take no for an answer. And it's like, I'm just running in and out of the study, just like, please, Luna, please don't go on the treadmill. It's very dangerous. Yeah. Okay, fine. I'll put it up to 4. Don't go above 4. And then she'll shout it. And so I'm like running between this room thinking, I just don't want her on the treadmill, but like she won't get off. And I just came back to the kitchen. I was like, I chose to have kids. I chose to have kids. I chose to have kids. And I was like, I was literally trying to remind myself that, because I think it is one of those things where like because it is the truth. Like you literally chose to have kids. You chose to have this little thing that is, you know, reliant on you to look after them and to bring them up, and they're not going to be well behaved, and they're not going to be grateful every time you make them a snack plate. And there's so many lessons in that. That's why I do feel like it's the biggest chance for personal and emotional and spiritual growth that you could ever. Like I've said that parenting is like tough mudder for the soul. It's just like it's the biggest transformational thing that you'll ever go through.
It is. It's profound. Like my kids are all adults now, and we're in this beautiful sweet spot where they're all kind of still living at home, but they're about to go travel, and they're their adult selves, and it's and they're they drive and they buy groceries, and it's like kind of living in a share house. It's pretty cool, like because we all just do our own thing, and then we come together each night for dinner, and it's so beautiful and rich. And I remember back to those years when you're doing that, where it's just like, man, this is full on, and it's relentless, and it feels intense. And coming over the other side, I mean, maybe I'm looking back with like misty eyes now, like, oh, it was so sweet when they were 4. But then there's a part of me goes, no, don't you remember how hard that is?
Yeah.
But it is just the biggest humbling experience, and it teaches you so much about yourself. Like it teaches you about surrender in a whole other way. And I often look back and think, my mission with my kids was just for them to be the full expression of themselves. Like that's all I wanted. I want you to be you. I don't want you to have to carry some burden of ours or some, shitty thing that we've had. I want you to just be free to be you. And when you set a mission like that, what that means then is you really need to let them be them. And I remember thinking in many phases of their lives, just like, what the hell? And then I kept coming back to, no, this is who they are. They either move slowly, or they're going to take risks, or they're going to do those things. And there's no right or wrong. That's just them being them.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of parenting is accepting that your kid's not going to be who you want them to be. They're going to be who they are. And I work on trying not to shame my kids ever for things too, because like they're both neurodiverse, and they do struggle with like executive function and like processing speed stuff. So it's like I have to remind myself to not shame them about the fact that they just like, they need prompting for this or that, or they take a really long time to do this, or they need reminders 5 times to get their socks on and that kind of stuff. Like each of them have their own little struggles, and I have to remind myself to try and like, not phrase things in a way that will shame them, and try to kind of scaffold them through those parts of getting ready and the things that are boring, that their brain is like, I just can't do this because it's giving me no dopamine. So again, it's like taking it out of myself and just thinking of their, like trying to be selfless in the moment, which is, again, it's like life. It's like a work in progress, and I get it wrong all the time. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to try and give my kids the emotional literacy for this situation, and I'm going to talk to them about the fact that, I'm feeling a bit grumpy right now, and it's not because of them, and I shouldn't have shouted, and, they should feel, fine about the way that they did it, and it's not their fault. And then I've been doing that for a while, and it seems to have helped them find the language as well to express themselves, which is really good. Like, because I don't pretend that I ever have it together. Like, I'm not one of those parents that pretends that I have all the answers or anything under control. So I often am just a bit of a mess around them, and I'll kind of just be open with them and tell them that, and I'll be like, I'm sorry. I have my period, and women go through a thing in the lead up to their period where they are a bit grumpy, and I shouldn't have spoken to you like that, and I'm really sorry. It's not your fault. I love you. And I hug them, and so that I've found that doing all that makes them much more confident in like expressing themselves to me, because they're not scared of being imperfect, because they see that I'm imperfect. So that's
so beautiful, because in my world of working with parenting, when we own how we feel, it instantly takes the pressure off the child. And the child goes, oh, it's not mine. Because when we're feeling all those big feelings and we don't actually go, hey, this is mine, the child often thinks, oh, it's my fault. So the fact that you do that is so amazing. And the repair is so powerful, because then it teaches them how to do it with others as well. And I often say to parents, no child wants a perfect parent, because it actually doesn't serve them. Like they learn by watching us mess up, how we repair, the mistakes we own and make. Like there's a lot of wisdom in that. And I think that sometimes can help our hearts when we're feeling like I'm messing it up or it's really wrong, like remembering that it's in the chaos and the messiness and how we respond to it that is such beautiful modeling for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it also shows them that it's like, it's okay to lose your shit sometimes. Like, yeah, you don't have to have it together all the time too. Like, you're allowed to be grumpy and say the wrong thing, and I'm not going to hold it against you, you know, but you probably also should repair afterwards as well, like I do.
You recently shared that you've had an ADHD diagnosis as well, and that your kids are in that space. Like, how has that been, you know, understanding that about yourself? Has that helped you kind of go, okay, this is how I can, you know, do life in a whole other way, understanding that that's how I work? Or how has that impacted you, understanding that?
I think, it's funny because I've had such an unconventional career that I think a lot of my ADHD tendencies have been very much accommodated accidentally. Like, a lot of people in like the creative music field we're always late to things. We don't answer emails very well, very bad with texts. Can't seem to kind of organize our lives. But I have I have a manager and a tour manager, and they just they tell me where I need to be at what time, and then I'm there. I'm usually running through the airport late to the plane, but most of the time I make it onto the plane. So I've been very lucky in that regard. But I think if I was to have, a normal job, like a 9 to 5 or whatever, I would really suffer. But it's kind of made me more compassionate about certain things. Like, I get very overwhelmed with too many things coming at me at once, and I find it really, really hard to prioritize. And I think my manager over the years has gotten to know that I will often just go through phases where I'll be like, I can't do this. I've got to, I'd cancel this, just clear the schedule. Like I'll get really emotional and just say no to everything, and and then a couple of weeks later, I'll be like, actually, it's fine. I'm fine. You don't have to cancel those things, or I can do them. And I'm very up and down like that. And I can get very exhausted and reclusive, and I'd have really low social battery. So I guess I've just learned things about myself, I can actually only do that much of this, and then that'll put me out for days, and that's okay. But it means probably the reason why I'm really good at this thing is because I just can hyper focus on it, and actually that's what I did my whole childhood, is I just hyper focused on music, and so that's my superpower, I guess. Everything else fell to the wayside, and I fell asleep in every other class at school, but I became really good at music probably because of my neurodiversity. So it's made me look at it like that. And it's also I think because my children have it, and they will also have autism, so I've had a lot of time to kind of really go deep into how our brains work, and what makes us function and what propels us towards something. And while we have a lot of trouble focusing on things that don't really interest us, and what we need to kind of help us a little bit with the things that are feel a bit menial, so it helps just understanding the chemicals of your brain a bit, I guess. And it just really helps with shame. I try to talk to my son about why he struggles with certain things, and how, it doesn't mean that he's not smart. The fact that he can't really listen to what the teacher's saying if the teacher is speaking to everyone. He really needs that one-on-one from the teacher. So it's helped in general with compassion, I think.
Yeah, and information's really powerful, isn't it? When we have more of an understanding, especially about our children and who they are, it makes such a huge difference in how we respond to them.
It does.
I really see that. And even as I reflect back on my kids now, I mean, what I know now, part of me is like, oh, I wish I knew that back then. I probably would have done it differently. But I guess I just have to go, well, it was what it was, and we found and muddled our way through. But I think information is so powerful, you know, with all aspects of who we are as humans. I have such a belief in knowing ourselves deeply is just one of the greatest things that we can do.
Yeah, and I think it's like, you know, some people are against labels, and that's, you know, that's a fair argument, but I think where labels can really come in handy is when it allows you to have this framework, you know, to read up on and go, okay, so if my brain is in this category, then chances are I struggle with these things, and I can implement these things to help me with those struggles. And that's just, it's really invaluable. Yeah. I feel really lucky that my kids have learnt this really early on too, because they're having the language for it. And, you know, they know how to talk to other kids about it and their teachers about it. And hopefully, you know, their knowledge about it will just improve as they grow up, and we'll be able to kind of talk through their struggles and what might help them. And, you know, like it'll be an ongoing conversation with all of us.
Yeah, beautiful. You mentioned to us that one of your things you're working on at the moment is getting out of your head and getting more into your body. And so what's that been looking like for you? I mean, because I would imagine as an artist, though, that it isn't just so much in your head. There's something that kind of moves through you. But does it stay kind of all up here for you, not so much in your body?
Yeah, I'm really not in my body. I just started seeing this new therapist actually, and she's helped me a bit with it, because she said to me, she said, well, right now, how much are you in your body compared to how much are you in your head, like out of 10? And I said, oh, I'm probably 8 or 9 in my head, and the rest the rest is in my body, like 1 or 2 in my body, because I can hardly feel it. And I didn't realize that until she said it. I was like, yeah, I have no feeling in my whole body when I'm talking to you. And I said, that's what I feel like a lot of the time. I get very, very stuck with thoughts, and they go round and round, and I ruminate on them. And I try to like intellectualize my way out of difficult emotions. And she said, well, you can't intellectualize your way through emotions, because intellectualization is like, that's an endless loop in itself. Because with emotions, you can kind of come at them from any direction, and you can explain them a million different ways. And so there's never going to be an answer. It's just going to have to be something that you feel. Yeah. And she said, you're not going to be able to process emotions unless you're at least like a 7 out of 10 in your body. And I was like, I'm never a 7 out of 10 in my body unless I'm maybe exercising, like going for a run or something like that. So she's given me these exercises of just sitting down and like kind of literally becoming aware of the parts of my body. And it reminded me of when I was a kid, and I used to really struggle with anxiety and sleeping. And my dad talked me through these body awareness things of, you know, lying in bed and squeezing your toes and then releasing them, and then squeezing your thighs and going up your whole body. I think they're called body scans. So I've started trying to do that. And I also I signed up to a dance class.
Yes, so good.
I was like, I think I need to really move my body like in ways that I never would have, and maybe that will help. But then I got a lot of social anxiety at the class, so I'm not sure if I can do that anymore. But I think maybe I'll I used to dance a lot by myself, so I think I'm going to start doing that.
Just put on a song at home.
Yeah, exactly. That I feel like I'd be much more free that way.
Yeah. I used to have this dance thing called 5 Rhythms years and years ago, which is basically they kind of turn all the lights off and you dance, and you just close your eyes and kind of dance, and it was like the best because you know, no one was really looking at you. You're just doing your own thing, and it was kind of with beautiful, loud music, and it was really cathartic. Like, it was a really amazing thing to just move without I don't have to look good and I'm not following choreography.
Yeah.
Just moving.
That's something I struggle with is choreography during this dance class. I was like, I can't. I just don't know.
Which side do you left or right? It's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
But I think something like that where we just let ourselves go.
Just be free.
Feel is really powerful. I think it's a really amazing thing that you bring up because I say that a lot in my work. A lot of people are not in their bodies. We've been taught to be kind of from here up, and especially because a lot of us were raised with not expressing our feelings, or it wasn't safe to have our feelings. So we learn how to push them down and stay up here and kind of overanalyze them instead of just feeling. And it's a big thing to actually be in your body and feel. And, you know, I have worked with clients sometimes where when they do start dancing or they are bringing more awareness into their body, all these feelings come up for them because it's like the body's been saying, hey, we've been holding on to this. We've just been bracing against it or we've been disconnected from it. It's pretty extraordinary what our bodies hold and can do. And then actually how good we can feel when we allow them to feel.
Yeah. I used to do this thing too. I've gone through so many phases of trying out these like new age therapies. At some point in my 20s when I found this dude in the suburb that I was living with that did these classes where you lay down and you just breathe and think about something that you're really grappling with or struggling with at that moment, and then identify where in your body you are feeling that thing, and then you breathe into that part of your body and just try to really feel the emotion that was coming up instead of running away from it, because it was so intuitive to just go, oh, I don't want to feel that. I actually don't want to think about that right now. But if you just hold on to it and just try and breathe through it, then the pain of it kind of dissipates. And that was really great because, those things that we run away from during the day, it's what keeps you up at night.
It totally is.
Yeah.
And then it keeps us in that spiral and that loop, and then we start to get more anxious around things. And I often think that too, like whether it's anxiety or depression or whatever we're feeling, sometimes it's just what we're turning away from, sometimes just feeling in the body. But it makes a lot of sense why we don't do it, because most of us have never been taught safe ways to do it. You know, I absolutely understand the push-pull of where we move to all the time with our feelings and emotions, you know, because we're, you know, I wish we lived in a world where it was seen as something that is really normal and natural. And I have a lot of hope that, like, even what you're saying, what you do with your kids is amazing because you're teaching them emotional literacy. Like, that was something that I never learned when I was a kid. We didn't talk about our feelings, or it wasn't something we talked about at school. It was something that was pushed away. So I have a lot of hope with a lot of the parents I work with that this language that we're using and just owning where we're at makes a huge difference for the imprints for our kids moving forward. It's amazing to see.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, it's just one of those things where every day you need to try to get your headspace in the best place possible so that you can be a good influence on your kids. So I think that's my main aim at the moment. It's like, how do I get myself like in my body more and get my nervous system as calm as possible so that I can actually be, you know, of a good mind and a good emotional state to be the best parent that I can be. And it's, you know, it's hit and miss. But that's the current challenge.
Yeah, I hear that. I often talk about imprints, which is about things that we took on from our childhood. So some really great things, like it could have been love music, it could have been being kind to people, it could have been, you know, working hard for something you love, like all those kind of things. And then we've got negative imprints as well. And I love to hear from people who are parents, you know, if I was to talk to your beautiful kiddos in 20 years' time and I was to say to them, what imprints did you take from your mum? Like, so what are the things that are those deep knowings that they have in their body, whether it is to, you know, take risks or whether it is to, you know, always look after my body. What is it that you hope that your kiddos would say in years to come about the imprints they've received from you?
I would really hope that they have a really deep sense that they're okay, you know, and that they are worthy of love. Because I try with my kids to really show them unconditional love, no matter how much they're acting up, or no matter how much they're kind of pushing against me, or even if they don't like me that day, which is happening increasingly as my kids are entering the tweens. But I want to keep showing up for them and show them that I'm here, and the ugliest of emotions that they want to throw my way, I can absorb that, and I'm not going to take it personally. I'm not going to resent them for it, because I know that that's just like I'm their safe place. So I want them to feel as though the stuff that comes up in them that that is not pretty and is not, picture perfect, not Instagram perfect, I want them to feel like that's all of that stuff belongs to.
Yeah.
And that ultimately they're a really good person that is worthy of being loved.
God, what lucky children to have that as a story and an imprint. So beautiful.
Well, that's the hope. Let's see if we get there.
You have just started a new relationship, and I'm so curious about, dating after divorce and when you're a mom, that kind of stuff. Were you dating, or was this something that was very organic? Like, how is it moving into a new relationship when you've been through that phase of mother and, that's where your life is? It's very different to dating before you have kids and that kind of stuff. Like, how has that been for you in navigating this new
it's
space?
been a bit of a minefield, really. Like, I think that's been a huge learning curve for me too, because it's so strange dating, trying to have a relationship with someone who's not the father to your kids, because I've been like, how much should I expect of this person? At what point do I introduce them to my kids? Like, are we co-parents, or is that too much to ask? Because he's also got his own kid. So, it's really been this balance of like, how much help can I expect from him in the parenting, and also how much should we just keep sacred for us, because this is that's the beautiful thing. That's another beautiful thing, is that we actually don't have kids together. So we have a bit of time while our partners have our kids. We have a bit of time to ourselves, which I feel really lucky about. So yeah, that's been huge. I think it's taken a while to find someone who is who works in that space, because Guido has his own kids, so he knows how to be a parent, and he knows things that I don't think someone without kids could really understand. It's like you've both been to the same war or something. If you're like veterans, or you're like, yeah, I know, I understand you. All you have to do is like look at each other and you're like, yeah, I get it. When you're grumpy or you're just having a bad parenting day or whatever, it's like, yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. But it's been so nice because we've both been through a lot of different relationships and a lot of big journeys where we feel like now we're at this point in our lives where we actually really know what we need and what we want. And emotionally, we're both like, we've done a lot of work on ourselves. I just don't feel like I could have chosen, the same kind of partner, like I did in my 20s or something. I'm now like, I just want to be with someone who's really kind and really thoughtful and considerate and actually just wants the best for me and wants to support me, and there's no hidden agenda and there's no ego, and we have the language to talk to each other like I don't know, just evolved humans. There's something really to be said for meeting someone in your 40s. It's like you've both sorted through a lot of shit, and you just don't want any games anymore.
No.
It's like I don't want someone who's, unhinged or emotionally unavailable or playing games. It's just like I want someone who what you see is what you get. And yeah, there's no more just emotional roller coasters. I'm just not interested in that anymore.
There's something really sweet, isn't there, about getting older, where you realise your priorities change, but you're kind of just not putting up with as much crap anymore, and you're also just in this like, actually, what is really important for me?
Yeah.
It's beautiful when we just kind of start, shedding things that just don't serve us anymore.
Yeah. And you're like, I've got kids. I'm a parent to kids. I don't want to be parenting my partner. Like I want this person to be completely fully formed, very capable. Like
So
that was my huge thing going into a new relationship. I was like, I don't want anybody that I have to look after or manage or like, because I felt so overwhelmed with being a single mum. I was like, I actually don't have any capacity to be taking care of anyone else. So like, if you come into my life, you are taking care of yourself.
Totally.
And we are walking side by side and supporting each other.
Yeah.
Where we obviously where we can, but like you have to have your shit sorted out.
100%. And it's really not sexy having to like mother someone. I'm like, that's not our job to be a mother to you. You've already got a mother. Like it's, it's, I hear you. It is. It's when you want kind of an embodied, partner who's like doing their thing. And, I love that. You walk beside each other. It's beautiful. It's really how it should be, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So beautiful. Okay. One last thing I just want to say, your music has, spanned over 20 years, right? And you would have had these beautiful people and fans who touched your music, early on when you first started. And now they have children, much like me, who are also, a second wave of fans coming that are enjoying or refinding your music in a whole way. Are you seeing that? Are you aware that there's this whole next generation that is finding your music?
Yeah, a little bit. I think it is down to all the amazing mums that played my CD to them in the car growing up. But yeah, I think it's kind of cool because we're in this age now where music is like it doesn't really have a timestamp because of TikTok and whatever. Kids are they're finding music and they're like, oh, this is a cool song. And then they'll share it. It's not like, oh, what era is this from or what artists, are they, of this certain genre or whatever. It's just like, oh, no, this is a good song that is to a cool clip and and then suddenly they're all listening to it. Yeah. So it's really, really interesting. And yeah, I love it. I mean, there's lots of people that come to my shows that are like parent and child. Mostly daughter and mum, but some men, and it's really lovely because I don't know, it's a really cool feeling to feel like you've written a song that can actually last 25 years and still be relatable to somebody. So it obviously wasn't too, trendy or of the moment. There's obviously something in it that there is a universal truth that can carry through generations. And that's really wonderful.
That is so wonderful. I mean, I can imagine as an artist that just must feel so wholesome that you can see that it's transverse time. Like that's really beautiful.
Yeah, thanks. So it is. It's one of those things like when I write a song, I try to get to, I guess, the core truth and that real universal truth or emotion of whatever I'm going through so that it's not so specific to my experience that I'm going to be the only one that can relate to the song, Hopefully people can listen to it and be like, oh yeah, that feeling is what I'm feeling in this situation, even though that's completely different to the situation she's writing about.
Well, you do it incredibly well. You really are a master of storytelling and music. And I mean, your music's touched my life and my whole family's life in many ways. Like, it has. It's been a real soundtrack to raising my children. Oh. And I've been to your concerts before. I also, John Mayer was something we used to play lots when our kids were little. And once the five of us went to a John Mayer concert, and my husband and I, our three kids were twins, we just cried the entire concert because there was something about that. This was us raising our kids, and your music has been that as well. So thank you, thank you for being such a beautiful soundtrack for the raising of my children and raising myself. Actually, through all those phases, it's been really beautiful. What would you like people to know about what you've got going on? Have you got shows coming up, or what have you got going on in the next little bit?
I mean, not much. There's not much I'm promoting, really. I'm kind of coming to the end of a big run of shows. I've been touring since the beginning of the year. And I've got a bit of quiet time now. I mean, I will have a few shows here and there, but it's going to be fairly quiet until next year. I'm going to be trying to get a bit of a writing rhythm going on for the next little while. So, yeah, watch this space.
See what's next.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time being here. It's just been a real honour to sit with you and have this conversation. As I've said a few times, like, you really have been just accompanying the journey of my life through, particularly my mothering phase. So it's amazing to sit here and have these conversations with you. First, thank you for your beautiful work in the world.
Thanks, Lael.
Thank you. Well, you can probably tell from that chat that I'm a bit of a fan of Missy Higgins and her music. And as I said, it has been a bit of a soundtrack to my mothering journey. I really loved just hearing her insights into the creative process for her, but also, what it takes to be vulnerable and to try and create something that lands with people. And I love that that's not necessarily her mission to make it land with people, but just to tell a story, and how wonderful it can be when it does, land for people and touch them in some way. I also just loved Missy's honesty around parenting and how hard it can be, because I think she speaks a truth that so many parents feel, that it is chaotic and it is messy and we don't often get it right. But I love how much she talks about owning her piece in it, how she repairs with her beautiful kiddos, and really, I guess, what she wants for them and their imprints of knowing that they're enough. I mean, isn't that such a beautiful, universal thing that so many of us want, to know that we are enough? I really just enjoyed, Missy's honesty and candidness about her career and the journey that she's been on and the ups and downs involved with it. And I think I just love that place of the getting older, what we're willing to have, what we're not willing to have, and really ultimately coming home to ourselves and our beautiful nervous system. Isn't that the goal, that we can start to move through life with a calm nervous system, feeling grounded and connected to not only ourselves but to the ones we love. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to be human. Thanks for sharing this time with me. You can find my book, Own Your Story, at bookshops or listen to the audiobook on Audible. I even read it myself. You can stay connected with Humans Being on Instagram, Facebook or YouTube. We love to hear from you, so please leave a comment, question or contemplation. And visit my website, laelstone.com.au, where you'll find lots of great resources and courses for you to explore. This podcast is produced by Nigel Carboon, recorded by the crew at We Make Online Videos, designed by Mike Gall, and our original music is created by Josh Reed. Humans Being is produced on the lands of the Bunurong and Wadawurrung people. We pay respect to their unique and diverse cultures and to elders past, present and future. Until next time, stay connected and don't forget to be human.